Dzindzichashvili, and the purpose of this DVD, there will be no theoretical discussions. There will be no discussions about what is the best move in the opening. We already done that part. Now we go to practical part of playing these openings. Now, I am gonna show you some of the games, most of them been played by me, on the openings that we very well analyzed in a theoretical part, on a theoretical DVD. Now, these games will bring you, they're carefully selected, very typical play in the opening we're going to discuss. Very typical, something that you may be expecting from average player to a strong player. They may not be the best games, because the way I've been selecting games from the hundreds and hundreds of different games played by different players, I selected ones that best that show you the best ideas at work. So what you may be expecting from opponent, what you may be playing, and their most common thing that may happen in your game. So again, they are not the best games, they are not the brilliant games, but they are very common, and they should be extremely helpful and extremely instructive. So let's get to it. Games we're gonna look at are on the Maroczy Bind system of the accelerated Draken. Now, very frequently when we play accelerated Draken for black, well, I would say approximately half of the times we will be faced, maybe close to half of the times, we will be faced with Maroczy Bind. We have to know exactly how to play against it, because playing Maroczy Bind, the danger of this system is that black can play freely and will not get in trouble in early stage of the game, no matter what they play. But the danger, real danger, is that you're gonna get position very passive if you don't play correctly without any counterplay, and this is, I think, big time danger. So we have to play counterplay. We have to make sure we get counterplay. There are two different ways to play against Maroczy Bind, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at both of them. First, we're gonna look at the system that I was previously, years ago, suggested for black, but lately this system is not proved itself as very reliable, but nevertheless some players would like to play that. The system is very sharp, and if you don't play on very highest level, you may try it, but there are ways for black to get counterplay, but you shouldn't count on full equality if white tries its best. So let's look at the games. The first game I would like to show you, game that was played with the old way I was recommending, very sharp way, and I show you what interesting points, what interesting counterplay sometimes you can get, and it's still this system is not out of the picture, but is not, as I said, not as reliable as the main system of which games we're gonna see after this game. So number of games on the way that I would recommend you to play today. Right now, let's look at the game with the old system that I was recommending for black. d4, cd, knight takes d4, knight c6, c4, bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6, knight c3, knight g4, queen takes g4, knight takes d4, and here the queen d1 move. This is the best move in this position, and what I was recommending, that's exactly what happened in this game. e5, and now the best theoretical move is knight b5, black castles, and white plays queen d2. Well, since I haven't made any new DVDs and updates on this variation, I want to show you quickly why white has to go queen d2 before they capture black's knight on d4. Capturing knight on d4 is not a good way to play for white. ed, bishop takes d4. And according to theory, this is equality, but as I showed on my DVD made years ago, this is far from equality, and in reality, this is a bad position for white. Queen a5 check forces king e2, because queen d2 will lose a piece for white. That forces king e2, and then black plays rook e8, f3, and d5. After d5, taking on d5 is real bad for white, because rook takes e4, fe, and bishop takes g4 will win for black. So when white plays bishop takes g7, rook takes e4 with the same idea. And now theory says that after king f2, there is a draw with queen b6 check. King g3, queen c7 check, king f2, queen b6 check. Yes, this is a draw, but it's a draw only if black wants a draw. What black can do here is play for win, because position is really bad, as I already mentioned, for white. King g3 and queen e3 move creates some very dangerous threats. And after h3, king takes g7, or maybe even queen f4 check first and then king takes g7 gives black significant advantage. Anyway, this didn't happen in a game, and in a game white played queen d2. After queen d2, there are two known moves in theory: queen e7 and queen h4. Queen h4 was played in the game. Bishop d3, this is the best theoretical move, and knight takes b5, c takes b, and in this position I mentioned d5 move, and after ed f5. Well, this position is better for white. I don't want to go through all analysis, because if you really want to know why, you can dig in the database. There are games on it. There are some analysis that I provide in earlier DVD. But what happened in this game was h6 move. That h6 move that was played just shows you how alive this variation is, and position is flexible. So I still think white has an advantage, but let's see what happened in the game. White castled, which is correct move. Black played d6, and after rook ac1, black played bishop e6, rook c7, and now black played b6, white played a4. This is much better position for white, but still very playable for black at the same time. d5 was played, and after ed, black played bishop takes d5. Now this is interesting. Black is already maybe okay. The possible variation is bishop takes g6, attacking black's bishop on d5. In my opinion, the best continuation after d5 for white is queen c2, just to maintain the open file and give black protected pass pawn on d4, but weakness on a7 and ownership of the c file still will give white an advantage, but still very playable position for black. Bishop takes d5. Bishop takes g6 was not played, but after bishop takes g6, an interesting variation is rook d8, protecting the bishop, attacking black's bishop, and after bishop b1, bishop takes g2. This is a draw. Queen is hanging. White goes queen c2, threatening queen h7 mate. So when black goes e4, king takes g2, queen g4 will lead to perpetual check. That's probably what should have happened, but black still already has good position, but white played wrongly and went on to lose the game. f3 was played, and now after f3, the best move would have been rook f to d8. However, black played rook a to d8, queen c2, and black is still doing okay. Queen b4, rook takes a7, bishop b3, and after queen e2, rook d6, black has nearly winning position. Their pieces very well placed in the center, and they on the d file, rook is totally disconnected from the game, and after rook d6, rook c1 was played, and after rook f to d8, bishop c2 and rook d2, bishop takes d2, rook takes d2, white is lost. Rook a8, king h7, bishop takes g6, since they were losing material already. Black has two minor pieces, two powerful bishops for the queen, for the rook, and they are absolutely winning. Queen e4, queen d6, and after a5, bishop d5, and in a couple of moves, game was over. Rook c6 was played, and on rook c6, bishop takes c6, b takes c, queen c5 leads to a forced mate. Well, this game is the only reason I show you this game. Every game has a purpose. It shows that even though white should be better in this variation of Maroczy Bind, this variation is not dead. By far is not dead. If you are willing to get very sharp position and you want to take some risk, that's the way to play. You're going to get some unbalanced positions and very interesting positions, but that's not the best way to play for black. Now, let's start looking the objectively best continuations. Objectively best continuation for black, which I recently recommended on the DVD, and which shows that black has equal position in almost in every case. Here is the interesting game between two very strong players. Well, game starts with knight f3, but as you can see, it was transposed to accelerated dragon real quickly. c4, g6, e4, knight c6, d4, cd, knight takes d4, and the move order that I recommend lately to play is knight f6, as opposed to bishop g7 that we looked in the last game. Knight f6, knight c3, d6, bishop e2, and here white couldn't play bishop e3 because knight g4 is very strong, so they played bishop e2. Now we take on d4 in order to make white recapture with the queen. And after queen takes d4, we go bishop g7, bishop e3, we castle. Now knight g4 is a threat, and after queen d2, the move I recommended in this position, a5. Now this looks little odd, this move, but this is very important to play move a5 specifically in this position, not the move later, only in this position. The reason why, because black wants to go a4 followed by queen a5, and that's the only time white cannot go b3 to stop a4 because of knight takes e4. As you can see, these two rooks are not connected, and white cannot capture the knight because they're gonna lose the rook. So white practically forced to castle. White is forced to castle. Then we go a4. White goes rook ac1. That's the most logical move in this position. Queen a5. Rook fd1. And bishop e6. Now f3 and rook fc8. Now this is the position we tried to get. So our queen on a5 is placed very well. Our pawn on a4 restricts white's pawn's movement on a queen side, and I would say black has sufficient counterplay. what happened in the game is knight b5, queen takes d2, rook takes d2, knight d7, knight d4, knight c5. This position, in my opinion, is already better for black. Well, maybe very small advantage, but definitely for black. Black has very well placed rooks. They have very well placed centralized knight and good minor pieces. Black has them. So in this position, after knight c5, black has an option to capture the bishop on e6, as they did. Knight takes e6, f takes e. Now, after f takes e, rook c to d1, white doubled on d file. There is no particular gain from this because d file is blocked forever for white. a3 was played, and in my opinion, white is in trouble right now. If white chooses to go b4, knight a4 will be played with all kinds of threats like knight c3 or knight b2. c4 pawn is weak, and all the squares on the queen side for white is weak. Taking on a3 is also very bad because makes pawn on a2 weak, bishop is hanging, and white is facing a lot of problems. b3, which is most logical move, is losing to knight takes b3, ab, and a2, and black will have decisive material advantage. So the only move left for white here is bishop takes c5. This game black lost. They played very well until now. Actually, they played very well for another couple of moves, and then they went wrong and they lost. But I want to show you, even after rook takes c5, black has some advantage, but most probably it's a draw. Black made very strong move, a takes b, and white played bishop d4. And that's where black missed decisive continuation. Rook takes a2 should have been played. After rook takes a2, by force, white has to make only moves to get worse endgame with a pawn down, rook endgame. And that's the bishop takes g7 move. White must play it. Now, rook b1 loses immediately to rook a1, and it's easy to see that white has no defense here, and that's why white is forced to play bishop takes g7, then b1 making queen, rook takes b1, and rook takes d2. White has two bishops for a rook, but they are both hanging. The only move for white is rook b2, and even in this position, black can simply play rook takes c2, rook takes c2, king takes g7. As you can see, black has an extra pawn and good winning chances. So that is the continuation that was missed by black. So they made rook takes a2 very strong move, but after bishop d4, they played bishop, after bishop d4, they played bishop takes d4 move, rook takes d4, and they played rook takes a2 now. But now white simply plays rook b1, which they didn't have if black has recaptured, as I mentioned already, rook a2. Now white cannot play rook b1 because of rook a1. So bishop takes d4 is decisive mistake, and after rook a2, rook b1, and after b5, white simply played rook d2, and after bc, rook d takes b2, and white is a piece down. They have some compensation, but black is piece down. There's some compensation, and white won the game. So there is critical moment, perfectly played game by black until this moment, and rook takes a2 is a winning move, bishop takes d4 is a losing move, and there is whole difference in this game. Very, very interesting game, very instructive game as well. Now next game is also tactically misplaced game, but this time by white. Let's see this game. And again, it's interesting how many ways to get Maroczy Bind, how many different first moves. In this position is d4. In a previous game was knight f3, but still transposed to Maroczy Bind. Knight f3, g6, c4, c5, knight c3, cd, knight takes d4. This is game played between two grandmasters. Knight c6, e4, d6, bishop e2, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, bishop g7, bishop e3, castle. This is different move order, but still arrive to the same position. Queen d5, a5, queen d2, a5, castle, a4, f3, queen a5. But this time white played different move, rook a to b1, intending b4. But it doesn't change at all black's plan. After rook a to b1, bishop e6, and here white played knight d5, queen takes d2. Notice that black did not have to play knight takes, queen takes d2, allowing knight takes e7. But they did correctly allow this. And white incorrectly took the opportunity and did play knight takes e7, which gives black significant advantage. Let's see what happened in the game.
This is Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for onlinechesslessons.net. First of all, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to receive more free chess videos from us, you can just click the subscribe button below. I would also highly recommend signing up for my free mail course, the 10 Grandmaster Secrets to Dominate Chess. During this exclusive course from onlinechesslessons.net, I'll share with you my own Grandmaster shortcuts to effective attacking, defending, and growth hacks to improving your chess without complicated books or memorization. So sign up by clicking the sidebar on the right and I know you won't be disappointed. Once more, this is Damien for onlinechesslessons.net, and I'll see you in my videos. Thank you.